Welcome to today's episode of Insights with Us. I'm Anastasia, a licensed professional counselor, owner of Happy Mind Wellness Company, a Colorado-based therapy practice, and creator of this podcast. My goal is to use this platform to help others find their voice as we share our journeys and show support as we learn more about ourselves and life. Growth happens when we get uncomfortable, which happens when we sit with new ideas we haven't sat with before. I hope we can work on this journey of personal growth and understanding together. As a disclaimer, there may be swearing in this podcast, but sometimes we get caught up in the human experience. It happens. And sometimes we can talk about difficult or activating topics. So maybe put on some headphones if you need to, and remember that support exists for you if you want it. I had mentioned last episode that I would release part 2 of the friendship series today, but with everything that has happened in America between last episode and today, I've decided to talk about what can get in the way of connection across different groups of people. This is not an episode where I spew facts and figures at you, even though I do have them, and I will share one small fact. And I will try my best not to preach or convince you to feel a different way or to have a different opinion from what you personally hold. And the reason why is because I believe that we all need to be our true selves in this world and to break free from the boxes that we have been forced into. The challenge is noticing what is you and what is a box. So with that said, let's see if we can build some insight today. I want to start today with my intentions, because I want every single person on this planet to feel loved, seen, and accepted exactly as they are. Even those of us that don't have insight into their mental health or the pressures society places on us, and for those who are still affected by these expectations and don't even know it. My work will not be finished until everyone feels safe to be themselves. And I honestly hope someday that I can work myself out of a job. Without curiosity, without space to explore the differences in opinion, and without love, these conversations can never happen, and no one will ever grow. We will stay separate. One small political fact that I want to share is that research has shown that the American political system has become more and more divided. And this explicit partisan voting started in about 1981. This is not that recent. And this has only grown stronger over time. And there has been an increase in the lack of acceptance of differing views, especially around controversial topics. There are a couple different factors to this, some of which I will talk about today. The first is that we tend to stay inside of our bubbles of like-minded people. We're comfortable there. We all want to stay inside of our bubbles. But if you never leave your group of peers, you'll never hear a different perspective. This makes it a lot easier to believe that your way is the only right way to do something. From there, it's an easy jump to try to force your rights onto another. Because if your way is the only right way, then of course everybody needs to do it just like you. But if we leave the bubble of our peers, first, we can keep our beliefs, but second, we can also start to understand the beliefs of others and where others are coming from. And that is where we can build compassion, understanding, insight, and acceptance. Controversial ideas are that for a reason, because every side of the issue has a valid point. If only one side made sense, it wouldn't be controversial. Everyone would just agree. For example, nobody really disagrees that holidays should or shouldn't exist, or that privacy is important. They may disagree on the level of privacy that's important, but everybody agrees that privacy matters. These are just accepted topics, and we don't really go into detail around it. Controversial topics like religion, abortion rights, political affiliations, these are difficult to talk about if you are on opposite sides because it gets so heated. There are so many emotions around it all. And the sides are so focused on being heard that they forget to try and understand. But again, every side has valid points. Even if sometimes those points are blown out of proportion or become so extreme that you on the other side struggle to see the validity anymore. Now today, I am going to give some examples of these extreme, more controversial topics. Because they are topics that everyone stays away from, I am going to blatantly name some of them. It can be difficult to be curious about something that you feel so strongly about. So please remember that this podcast, this episode, this space that I am building is for curiosity and noticing reactions, not for hate. But even if what I say brings out anger and hate for anyone who is listening, and you can't actually hear my words, I will support your right to feel that way. And I ask that you turn that curiosity towards the reaction instead. Where does it come from? What makes you hate my words? So I'm going to begin with an example from my own life. One of my closest friends and I, over 10 years ago, became close after we spent a couple hours sitting at a table talking about abortion rights. We were not on the same side of the issue, but we were able to hear each other. My friend believed that abortion was wrong, and they themselves would never go through one. I believed that if there were regulations in place and it was done early enough, it was fine, especially if it was needed for safety. However, we both agreed that we did not want to decide for the other what was right or what was wrong. She would never want to force someone unwillingly to go through a pregnancy, just like I would never want to force someone to go through an abortion if they wanted to carry the fetus to term. Our individual belief systems are just that, our own. And they do not actually affect others until we try to force others to match our beliefs. For those of you that are joining mid-podcast and didn't listen to my first episode, I grew up all over the world. My family spans multiple types of Christianity, not just one. I was raised in Muslim countries, and my friends identify with every type of religion or lack thereof. I believe that religion is an attempt to understand why the world exists the way it does. Every religion I've learned about, and I've learned about a lot, have similar stories, beliefs, and teachings. And yet, each religion is trying to convince me that the other is wrong. And therefore, if you don't follow theirs, you're going to hell. Imagine being a child and being told by 4 or 5 different religions all at once, if you don't believe theirs, you're going to hell. You are wrong. Which one would you believe? Which one would actually prevent me from going to hell and save me? If they all say that the other one is wrong. In reality, we usually end up believing whoever we grow up near. If you were born in the Midwest of America, you're probably some form of Christian. If you were born in Thailand, you're probably Buddhist. If you were born in the Middle East, you're probably Muslim. It's less about what religion is right, but what religion is local. For me, being exposed to all of it, starting at a very young age, and growing up with all these different languages and teachings and understandings, I ended up believing none of it. I believe there is something out there, but I think organized religion is not how you get closer to a higher power. Me, personally, my beliefs was that organized religion was created by man to control you and how to feel your faith. If you don't show up exactly the way your organized religion is telling you to, then they're telling you you're doing it wrong. And that just doesn't make sense to me. Because me personally, I feel my faith in nature, away from buildings and away from books telling me how to live my life. And I'm sharing this with you because if something doesn't feel right for you, that doesn't mean you're wrong. It just means that the language you were taught doesn't match how you understand the world. There are other languages out there, other ways to believe and understand and find faith. I want you to find your own way to feel your own faith. It might match with the way that you were raised. It might not. I also want you to help others find the language that fits for them, even if it doesn't match yours. No one is wrong in their beliefs. It only becomes wrong in the eyes of someone who doesn't agree. If you are Christian and someone who is Muslim tries to get you to change your mind to become Muslim, it might feel like they're trying to force their beliefs on you, and you might become outraged. Just like someone who is Muslim might get outraged if a Christian tried to convert them. If you believe in your heart of hearts that abortion is murder, well, of course you're going to be upset and even angry if someone close to you chose to have one. It even makes sense that you'd want to convince them not to. But that doesn't mean that they believe the same way that you believe. And that doesn't mean that it's okay to force someone to follow your beliefs if their belief system is different. Again, if you believe life begins at conception, then I understand completely why you would choose to stay pregnant. If you believe that life does not begin at conception, then I understand that you might feel like you have more options available to you, and you might choose to prevent a pregnancy while it is still safe to do so. Again, regulations, safety, within the realms of healthcare and what makes sense to that person and that belief system. If the roles were reversed, if you were forced to have an abortion because the majority believed it was necessary or what was right, let's say, I don't know, for population control or illness and poverty prevention or some other radical idea, you would probably be offended and angry that someone else was putting their beliefs on you because it didn't match what you believed. I also believe that being pro-life instead of pro-choice in this world must be so challenging, especially considering once a baby is born, there are no protections in place to help that child live a healthy life. There's little to no support for new mothers. No supplies for those born in poverty that can't take care of their kids. No safety in schools. And honestly, if you're listening to this and getting upset because that doesn't matter to you, all that matters to you is that pro-life, well, then it's more pro-birth, isn't it? Because there is so much more to the life of a child than whether or not it is born. And I care about everyone's life, not just a life that is in a uterus. But that is honestly a whole other conversation that we do not need to get into today. So we will shift that. Again, curiosity, thinking about how we struggle to hear each other on opposite sides. In this world of controversial ideas and beliefs all across the spectrum of humanity, it's important to remember that your opinion is not the only one that matters. Everyone's opinion matters, individually, to each person. What I believe and what I'm passionate about matters to me. What you believe and what you are passionate about matters to you. And someone who has beliefs that are different than mine is not wrong. It's just different. Growing up all over the world, I was constantly exposed to different beliefs, ideas, cultures, religions. I grew up in countries that were not free, where I wasn't allowed to speak my mind or dress how I wanted. And I was so excited to live in America, where it was supposed to be free, where I could be exactly who I wanted to be, judgment-free. And now I find myself worried about what I wear or what I say in public for fear of being attacked because I'm different or woke. And I have so many people in my life right now who are terrified to be themselves. And that honestly upsets me so much more than anything else that is happening on this political stage. When I look at the leaders of my country and the countries all over the world, I don't necessarily look at their own personal belief systems. I look at whether or not they are able to understand all of the different people they are promising to protect and serve. Can they actually hear and understand every group of people living underneath them? Or do their words create more separation? Do they convince you to hate a group for not looking like you, for not having your same beliefs, or convince you that someone is trash, vermin, demons, because they don't say what you say or follow what you follow? Or are the leaders able to remember that we are all human, that we are all allowed to exist? And especially for those of us in America, America is supposed to be about freedom and being able to be who you are. Which of our leaders tell us to hate and which tell us to love? Which leaders, if you end up disagreeing with them, will protect your freedom to disagree and which will try to silence you? I will always fight for your right to be exactly who you are, no matter what your belief system is. And I will always fight for whatever choice gives the most people the most freedom. No matter who you are, how you identify, who you are attracted to, or what religion you follow, I will fight for your right to be yourself, because you are human and who you are is never wrong. I hope for those of you listening that you take a moment after listening to these words I said today and look at the people you surround yourself with. If you are only surrounded by people who believe exactly the way that you do, then there is a chance that you are in a silo of information and not looking at the greater picture. The best advice that I can give you is to start branching out, finding even just one safe person whose views differ from yours, and ask if you two can have a conversation to try and understand each other's perspectives just a little bit more. It might take some practice. Things might get heated, but this is such a powerful tool. Understanding, compassion, and remembering that every single one of us is human is how we can change the world for the better. Hopefully, something we talked about today resonated with you. If it did, let yourself sit with that idea for a little while longer. If you have any questions for this podcast or any themes you'd like us to focus on in the future, send us a message on Instagram at Insights With Us Podcast, or send us an email at insightswithus@gmail.com. If you enjoyed this podcast and want to hear more, please follow, like, or subscribe. If you want to support the continuation of this podcast, you can donate. To do so, visit my website and donate on Podbean's patron program, or find me, Anastasia Soroka, on buymeacoffee.com. I appreciate you, and I appreciate that you are listening. Thank you for being you, and thank you for creating insight with us.